Yo, this your boy Tonio coming through another episode of Backyard Comedy. As always, I got my boy, excuse me, baby. Please hit it, baby.
Yeah, I already know that.
That really do that I got beside me.
Right here beside you.
And y'all know what time it is. If you see this man right here, you know it's a Backyard Inspiration. Dr. Honest Martin Sr., here we go right here. How you doing, Pop?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm glad you're stopping by on this evening, man. We gonna touch on something that I feel is very important. First of all, this episode is brought to you by Real Demand TV.
Oh, yeah?
Y'all know we're streaming in 172 countries. If you know anybody, and I mean anybody dealing with any type of substance abuse, holler at my man, Mr. Julius Rowe. Forward motion that will get you moving in the right direction. And we're gonna start this episode with the importance. How important is it for our black history? And we got the man with the master plan right here. How you feel about that, Pop?
Hey, look, I feel it's vitally important because if a man doesn't know his history, he doesn't understand where he's been, then he's destined to repeat it. So if we don't know what happened in our past, we'll allow it to happen again.
True story.
That's true. Yeah. And you know, I'm not calling you old now. I'm calling you old. But you know, for your generation and generations before to have an impact on our black history, how important is it for, you know, men and women of color, our ages, to know their black history?
Hey, again, I can't emphasize how important it is. I came up during the 70s. I'm a 60s baby. Early 60s. So old is a privilege because a lot of people don't live to get to where I am. That's an honor. I'm grateful for that. I thank the Lord for that. So, I'm okay. You don't bother me when you call me old.
Yeah. I say, why?
Yeah. That may tell you, to bother me less because my patience short. But anyway.
That's what they say. You done lived through it.
Let's talk on that, man, because you know they're trying to erase, you know, our culture, and I know you can speak on that more. I told Honest you was going to dig deep in it whenever we thought about it.
So the question of this show is our history, is our heritage being erased? Yeah, that's the question of this show.
They trying.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And to answer that question, if it is, it's because we're allowing it to.
There you go.
No one can no one can erase anybody's history without their permission. Because history should be passed on in the families.
That's real.
And it should be passed on in the not only the family setting, but it should be passed on from generation to generation. So when you're dealing with history, it can't be erased if it's passed on before it's ever written. You know, so that's the thing about it. History has to be passed on before it's ever read or written. A person should understand and know who they are before they ever attend any institution of higher education, before they ever participate in any organized instructions. They should already know who they are.
And that's the thing. You know, a lot of our, I would say our people, don't know who they are, man. And it drives a wedge in who they need to be. For the simple fact, man, that our communities were built off each other. And it's a lot of self going on right now. It's a lot of self. And we don't realize how strong we are as a people together rather than separately. And that's how we built a lot of the things that we have now. And if we forget how we built that stuff, how can we ever overcome that and build again?
Yeah. I think a lot of the history and stuff is not told because they're ashamed, you know what I'm saying, a little bit, to pass it down, which is, you know, I know that doesn't sound real, but that happens. Like, a lot of black people don't like their history, They don't like their history to even tell where they came from or how they got here, anything. You know,
that's sad.
Yeah, it's really sad, bro, because, you know, I know for myself, not just saying this is black history, but I went trying to find history about my family lineage and stuff, and a lot of people in my family, they don't want to discuss it because either they don't know or either they don't choose not to know. You know, they're not trying to find the information out for themselves. I know for me, I wanted to find out like historical facts and stuff because that does bring out you know what I'm saying, a lot of things that you have hidden inside of you. You know?
And I mean, I think a lot of it also is they don't want to take the time and the legwork to do what they need to do to find out the information. You know, to go and do their own research. You can. It's good to ask somebody. Of course, it is. But make sure you're asking the right person because sometimes you can get the wrong family history. And I know that for sure.
And another factor on that, most of the patriarchs and the matriarchs of the families who was the historians have passed on. And when they were in a position to pass the mantle to someone else to be keeper of those records and information, they didn't do it. So now you got generations having to try to piece it together when it was already, formatted, and all they had to do was just follow and add to it. So that's one of the main reasons. But in what you were saying about people being afraid to talk about the history and all of that. Well, whether you talk about it or not, it's still true. And not talking about it doesn't make it any less true. Again, bringing forth the truth, though, and it says it in the book, and I believe is holistically and realistically that the truth shall make you free. And so, and telling that truth is going to create a freedom within an individual to whereas they understand where they came from and be proud of where they are and keep working towards becoming something better. So that has to happen once they've been planted upon the foundation of their roots and history. Our history is rich. Our history is one of the greatest and strongest histories in the world. If you think about it, everything had its origin from where we still are, where we came from, and where at some point we will reunite, whether it is in the natural realm or the spiritual realm. Everything, I have a Science Week magazine way back from the 80s, and it says when DNA was still first doing the DNA testing and all of that, and they said we found the source of all life, all human life. We found the source of it, and it's from an area over in Africa. And they said, we're going to call the place Eden. I'm like, wow, that's original. And then they went on a little further. They said, then this mother that had these children, we're going to give her a name and we're going to call her Eve. I said, oh my, now you've came up with something totally new that no one has ever read before. But really, the thing is, the truth will manifest. You cannot hide it. And that's why I was saying, even if people are not, talking about what happened in their families and what has gone on, that truth will manifest in one way or another. So it's best to go ahead and tell it so we can deal with it, we can digest it, and we can learn from it and move on and become greater and better as a result of what we learned.
I think a lot of people don't want to dig deep into history because it makes them upset. Because when they talk about history, they only talk about the negative side of history and what was done to us negatively. They don't talk about the importance of what black people done for this country and for us as people that we use to this day. They don't talk about that.
But that's I ain't mean to cut you off, but that's what makes me mad about the movies nowadays because that's all that's portrayed. And that
except for Django.
Me.
I thought I told you the deep side. Django,
that's my movie now. That's my movie.
Is that a nigga on the nash? Excuse me, y'all.
When I did my research, it said that black history was a part of world history, and I felt like I disagree with that because we're always set separately. Our history is set aside from everything else that happened. Black people are always set aside from everything else, man. And I kept on digging because I know how pops. Like
he get in there.
And it was first as Negro History Week. In 1926, in February, it was created February 1926 by Carter G. Woodson, known as the father of black history. You know what I mean? And I didn't know it was limited to just a week.
I didn't either.
It was nothing.
I thought it started off as a month.
It was limited to a week, and then it was nothing for a span of time. Then it was reintroduced, and then as a month. But the thing about it is, whether it's recognized nationally or not, doesn't negate the fact that the black people have done so much in this world and making it to be what it is, and not just labor wise, but we've done it intellectually, and we've been in the midst of all of the major accomplishments in some form or another. And so the thing is that I think though. I think the part that gets me about it is that we don't want to focus so much on a race and ethnicity that we miss what was really being designed and accomplished for the human race. Because anything that was done wasn't just made for a people, but it was made and created for all people. And what most people, and some, no matter what the ethnicity is using that as a tool to separate, which that's what the enemy wants to do. He wants to separate us, and when he have us separated, then the old saying, divide and conquer. So it's a lot easier to conquer a group if they are divided from a pack. so to speak, or a group that where they have defenses for themselves. So as a people, we got to make sure that we teach our children that. My son over here, he was learning about that before he ever went to school because I taught it to him. I never went to a major university or any of those things. Smart now. And so, but if you can read, if you can research, then you can find the information.
Indeed.
Talk to family members. It may be a hard conversation, but it's the hard conversations that create growth. So have the hard conversations. You may get mad. You may shed a few tears, but that's all right. The body was created to do that, to release emotion so you can learn better how to calm down and cope with it. So go through those processes in order to perfect who we have been designed to be. And I'm speaking to those who are my age who may look at this, and if not, then if some of you are listening to it and you have parents or relatives who are my age, go and pull on them. Make sure you ask them the hard questions, and there may be some things that were covered up. We grew up in an age where there were babies, that was had and stuff like that, and they would put it with another family, put the child with another family, just because the family that had it couldn't afford it. Well, that child was raised in a different family, and that family became, the parents of that particular child, and it was never revealed that had happened. There were some who were just left stranded and found by others, adopted by others. All these things took place, and a lot of it had to do with poverty because they just couldn't afford to keep the child, and they were praying and asking God to send someone that would take care of this child, and so that child could have a better quality of life. So that's nothing to be ashamed of. I think the only thing that we should be ashamed of is that we weren't taught how to do that properly until here recently. I mean, if you can't handle something, then you'd be a fool not to seek help, whatever it may be. So that may be some of the ills and some of the things that cause people to shut down. But what we got to understand is that will always be a struggle and a fight. I came up to the time we call the Black Power era in the 70s.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, that is a time that you really understand the power of a black people. We policed our own communities. When something happened, we took care of it. Nobody called the police. It wasn't that we were trying to keep information from the police to make it better. No, it was by the time the police had gotten it, we'd already taken care of it, and we took it. We had taken care of it as a neighborhood family, and that individual was taken care of. There was always a place that you could go and buy commerce from in the neighborhood. Everybody in the neighborhood would keep each other informed about what was available and what could be done and what couldn't be done, how to succeed. If one neighbor had it, every neighbor had it. And every so often you would have get together as a neighborhood in the local playground or park or just on the block itself.
Come on now,
that's what
y'all had a block back in the day.
That's where the block parties came from, right?
Block parties.
Can't do that now though.
They would put 5 Negroes in the room.
You can't do it now because they've lost their sense of awareness, and now they're catering to this design of the enemy to be self-destructive.
Absolutely.
If we destroy ourselves, then that eliminates the others from having to do it. So we just step back and watch them self-destruct, and it's going to happen. Not only with our not only with our race, but with any race. They're going to implode, and that will happen simply because of disagreements and not knowing how to settle your differences in a listen to this in a way where you've done it where it preserves humanity. Do it in a common sense way. That's the thing we've lost. It's
common.
Common sense solutions. And that's a real easy word. You don't have to get too intense or too deep and understand that common sense solutions mean you just think about it. Just think common stuff. But anyway, that's kind of a part of what it is. I've marched in marches across the city of Rocky Mount, singing Black Power to the people.
Wow.
Black Power to the African peoples, and had folk on the sidelines calling us niggas and saying, you niggas go home. And I'm using the N-word. That's not I don't often do that, but that's what happened in this particular incident. So I want to make it as real as it was. Here I am, a little kid. I'm probably now somewhere between first and second grade. I can remember it just like it was yesterday. So that tell you it must have made a strong impact on my life. But we marched across the city and marched through these neighborhoods, and that's what we call it. Had police escort. And we would march from one point to the next point, and when we got to the point that we were destined to be at, there would be, of course, a pig picking or a cookout, and everybody would eat, and we'd go back home. But we'd march doing that, and that's the thing that broke the stronghold of the enemy, because we were united, and they knew that everybody that was on that street, on that pavement, was together. If you touch one, you had to touch them all. You know, I've been in neighborhoods where they were creating them and starting them, and you see the crosses burning because they didn't want those particular homes over there where they were. You ride by, and I remember as a little boy riding by with my grandparents in the car and see the cross burning on the side where they didn't want the neighborhoods there. You know, it scared the dickens out of me. But I would, but you know, with that, I was comforted by my grandparents, you know, telling me you're going to be all right. But I'm grateful to them for allowing me to see that and to see how we persevered and overcame it, because all of those things that happened gave us better results and gave us strength. And we were able to accomplish more as a result of taking those stands and doing those things that were hard.
And we got to get better at that. I mean, because you know, you think about it, every chance we get, we tear each other down in situations rather than build each other up. And that can't happen because, I mean, you look at people like I'm wearing Muhammad Ali right now. Shout out, you know what I mean? You look at people like him. He made sacrifice. Self wasn't what he was thinking about. He was thinking about his community, and he made a sacrifice and went to jail because he felt like he wasn't going to fight for someone that wasn't providing something for his community or for his people.
Brave man,
and so you know, we don't make sacrifices like that for each other, and we got to do that, man. We got to continue to do stuff like that for each other.
You know what? I think you kind of answered my question. I was going to say, you know, I seen that was I heard there was so much unity back then. Do you think we could get back to how it was? You know,
I think we have to.
It's
not been a question of if we can. I think the question is when we do. It's when we do. Because we have to. The economy is steering us in that direction. Society in and of itself is steering us in that direction for safety reasons. You know, and so all of those things are steering us back where we have to become interdependent, depending upon each other. And it's a necessary thing, because together we can rise and we can achieve and we can accomplish, because you got more ideas and you have more hands and eyes. The Bible talks about how one will, succumb to the enemy, how two will overcome it, and then it talks about a threefold cord is not easily broken. So it says, one can chase 1,000, but two 10,000. So you're talking about 10 times as much. And so the thing is that when we work together, we're able to accomplish in an exponential value of achievement, and there where the adversary can interfere. So we have to do that, and we're getting back there, and now we're coming back with all kinds of new resources and new inputs, and we've gotten into new areas and things of that nature, which will help us to accomplish the goal, I think, of being a light for everyone, and so we have to, and we will.
I tell you one thing, God timing is impeccable. He put me in the right time there, right? I'd have messed up something, and I'd have went to the safe on him. I ain't lying. I'd have messed up something, man. But I did, just to piggyback from what you said earlier, I did ask somebody, and it's like I triggered something. I asked the importance of Black history, and that man turned into Black history himself. Why tell you what I know? He was very informative, and he went through a lot of stuff, even with the military, how he was treated in the military, man. And I could tell by his eyes that me asking that question, you know what I mean, it did something to him, because people don't ask him anytime. I ain't gonna say my job because I'm not paying y'all for this, but at my job, whenever veterans come in, I always tell them I appreciate you for your service. I always tell them that, when I'm bringing them out, I always say that to them, man. And something like that, fighting over here, being like you said, being called the N-word, and you fighting for these people, and they treat you like this. You can't eat like the white soldiers and all that stuff, man. That man telling me the story, he's actually reliving those moments,
man.
that he's trying to bury.
I mean, you got to if the people out was treated that way, if they was treated bad, you got to realize how the people in the military was treated. So I mean, that's much respect, man.
But it was a saying,
Shout
there is
out.
no black man's army.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just talking about the army itself. It was talking about all military.
Yeah.
Of course, I served in the Marine Corps a few years, and I understand it. You call the N word in there, and then nothing you can do about it because it's by somebody who outranks you. So if you rebel against it, it only hurts you. You're the one that ends up getting kicked out.
Wow.
Or getting
No benefits or nothing.
Yeah, set aside and having to do the jobs that nobody else wants to do.
Yeah.
So you learn how to cope and to navigate the nuances of the enemy. And so the thing is this: we have to know the importance of just being who we are. And I like you bringing in that part, Tony, about when you spoke to somebody about it, because it's painful, especially for a man. When you've been made to feel like you're less than a man, and then it takes it even to the next level and try to make you feel like you're less than a human being. I experienced that with my tour in the Corps. I had a staff sergeant to come and do some stuff, and I spent my whole time there plotting on how I was going to kill him because of what he did. And thank God I got out before I carried it out, because I had mastered the plan by the time for me to get out. But those things are true, and I have to believe, yes, it's gotten better, but it's not at the best that it could be. So these things are happening. So when these things, when a person goes through something like that, not only does it hurt them, but most people will bury it, and that's the way of dealing with it. See, I'm in the generation where that story Roots first came out. That when that was created, and when they wrote it and put it on TV, we was in school. And we went to school the next day, because I think it was about a 2-day or 3-day show. And when we went to school the next day, it was trouble. It was trouble, because we separated again for a while, and any of the people that was of a different color that walked by where we were, they kind of paid the price for what their ancestors did. And so that's kind of the way it was.
I don't blame y'all.
But then, now this was we were in the 8th grade, and then by the time we got on up in high school a little further, we reunited and started working together better, and started realizing the importance of everybody. So I think that's what has to happen. Everybody needs to realize that all people have something to contribute. And any time I try to eliminate the contributions of another person, I'm hurting myself, because I'm not getting what they have to offer. And that's what, to me, will cause the demise of a society. Next thing you know, we'll be under the power and the authority of some other nation or some other country, or be owning us simply because we didn't join forces. So we have to understand that and know the importance of that. Let me say this to you guys, and you guys are of a different breed than we was. Of course, we didn't have access to it, and we weren't thinking about it. It wasn't about the fighting physically. It was more about, we were in the era where the pen is mightier than the sword. So we were about to change laws and to change rules and to change those faces that were in the midst of the governmental seats and holding the offices. And a lot of that has been done, and it's still being done. I'm grateful to have been living long enough to see a black president. May not agree with everything he did or said, but it was a representation of how a people can overcome and hold one of the highest seats that this nation has to offer. So I'm grateful for that. But that doesn't mean that everybody that's not white that's in there has been wrong. So you have to understand that. We got to have a sense of reason. And even when we have that sense of reason, we can't act as if we're superior to everybody else. But we definitely will not act inferior. So we got to understand that we all have been put here to work together, and everybody has something to offer if they can have a seat at the table. And the thing is, when we have a seat at the table, we want to be, listen, our sitting at the table doesn't mean we want to just be there as a token, but we want to have a voice. And a lot of people are just sitting at the table, but they don't have a voice at the table. So while you're at the table, if you don't have true representation, you know what I'm saying? So what does it matter if we got one or two billionaires who are people of color, and they're sitting at the billionaire table, but they have no representation.
Yeah.
Because all they're doing is conforming to what the other billionaires want.
Yeah.
You know,
And
I've sat in board meetings and all of that kind of stuff where I was the only one.
Yeah.
And being the only one, you know, you have to learn how to speak, when to speak, and then when you open your mouth, they got to know something is coming out of there that gets everybody attention. And let them know that you'll change the world with one word if you have to. So, you know, that's what we got to do.
Now, I just want to tell you this now. You know how this man talking like this? This man got hearts on his shirt, and I ain't even pay attention. Those are hearts going down his shirt. Man, full of love, but don't play with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, with them, you know, trying to take out, you know, things out of, you know, the Black History museums and out of school, have you ever thought about holding classes or things of such, you know, to teach people that is getting limited to get that information?
Yeah, and that's what too. We got to make sure we keep supporting the HBCUs for that, because they give that information. But again, everybody is not college material. And so the home should be teaching that, and they should be telling them about that. Let me just do this while we're talking about that, because when they were tearing down the statues and all that, I had a talk with our men. Our men meet, you know, once a month, and I was talking to them, and you know, some people was on one side of the spectrum and some was on the other side. And I says, well, to me, it doesn't matter whether they take them down or leave them up.
That's how I feel.
The statue doesn't tell the story.
That's true.
That's all it does is represent it. So if they take them all down, then what are we going to use as a landmark, as a memorial, so we can keep reminding our children of the story? Because, see, sometimes it's out of sight, out of mind. And so we'll stop telling the story because we don't have nothing to remind us of what we've gone through. So if you're not going to tell the story and keep people reminded, you better keep the statues up so they'll ask somebody else the question and be reminded of what happened. So my thing is, I don't care about statues. The information is not in a statue. The information is in the minds and the hearts of a people. And if we don't tell it, and if we don't represent it, and if we don't make the story, listen to this, to what it is being, then we're going to repeat what has already happened. And we may not repeat it with chains and shackles. I get it. You all are not going to do that. They're not going to be able to have you shackled up and keep you in some you know, geographical location and make you do something that you're not willing to do. You escape, you run, you know, you got agility and all that. But they can do it to you economically, because you can only get so high in your earnings, and you can only acquire so much with your vocation. Even if you're an entrepreneur, your materials have to come from somewhere. Your clients got to come from somewhere. So if they own all of that, if they control all of those things, then you're only going to make so much money. So you're only going to have so much, and then they don't care if one gets out. What about the other 1,500? You know, so the thing is that we got to understand, if we don't get out together, then we're not out. And if one succeeds and don't reach back and help others, then they are not successful. I don't care how many zeros they got behind the figures in their bank account. They're not successful. If they're not breathing on others, if they're not releasing impartation into the lives of others, they're not making a difference. You know, so that's the thing we got to understand. Even you guys at an age now where you got to start breathing on somebody. You got to start pouring into others. This that you do now as a podcast is wonderful. That's why I told you I want to come on it, because it makes a difference. It makes, even with the comical stuff, it makes a difference, because you always got people up there who are putting out some stuff that will help somebody. I know that may have some little negativity here or there, but you know, you take the bad with the good. And if you're a person that is an optimist, then the good is going to overflow
every time.
You know, so that's the thing we got to understand. But you know, to speak on that thing about our race and who we are, and where things are going and what we're going to learn, if the family doesn't start teaching it again, and if we keep allowing these electronics, phones and tablets and laptops and all of those things to control our kids, then they will never know who we are. They'll never know where we came from, and never understand how to get from where they are. They'll always be identified as someone different. And it doesn't matter how much you get involved with someone who's not like you, you're still going to be you.
And that's why I said we gotta.
I'm gonna jump.
We gotta protect. Crazy, but we gotta protect our legacy, man. We gotta protect our history. You know, it's a lot of stuff that we have brought to the table as a group, as a black people, and it has been stolen from us. And we're allowing the enemy to keep stealing from us, our people, our community. You know, Dad was just talking about a while ago. People are getting, you know, we're getting harassed and you know feeling less of a man in the military. And now we're letting society break up our families. So when men and women come home, they feeling less of a person in their home. And so we have to start building up our homes, building up our communities, protecting our heritage and history, so that we can grow as a person. If we don't protect what we brought to the table, then we can't keep building on the table. The stuff we have is gone. You can't keep adding on to it.
And just to piggyback with you, man. You know, I like to say piggyback. Just to piggyback with you, man. A lot of people died with fighting for
that reason.
For our rights and all that stuff, with lack of information, and we have an abundance of information these days. And these Negroes can't even get off their tail to go outside just to get just a simple job. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And they was like you said, Pop, the stuff y'all had to endure, and before you and our generation, it's like they just don't have a care in the world, man. The YNs is what they call it.
I think they don't seem like they don't care because it doesn't.
It doesn't resonate with them.
It doesn't resonate with them.
It doesn't seem like they're accomplishing anything.
Right.
They feel like they're working in areas of futility. All that they do, they'll never accomplish, so why waste the effort? I get it. And we lose a lot of great minds like that. But we got to learn how to celebrate each other. That's important, and that's what we got to get back to, is celebrating each other. And that's what happened in the generation I came up in. We celebrated each other, no matter what your difference was, no matter whether you were smart or not so smart, didn't matter whether you had money. What's up? What's happening? Right on. Yeah, all of that.
It's real.
That's who we was, and we celebrate each other. And see, our educators, which at the time I started school. My first grade year was the first year of integration.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So before me, it was segregation.
So you had signs with whites only and blacks only.
When I was a little boy, that was there.
Wow.
That was there. So when I was, my first grade year, as I stated, was the first year that they started integration. And man, of course, there was fights and stuff about who's going where and all this kind of thing. But
I know you held your own, though.
There were so many people that wanted it because they knew it was better for the nation. And what we're finding out that if we would really focus on this and address this and implement this into our lives, there'd be more people that wants what's right and what's better for the nation than there are against it. You got a few that'll speak out and a few that are trying to do some stuff to put some people in a separate place than others, but that few can't change it. If the masses of those who want things to be right continue to uphold righteousness and continue to fight for equality. And that's what we got to do. And you got to understand, you can't allow it to have you in a position where you become prejudiced as an individual, because that doesn't help the situation.
Black people get prejudiced too now.
You start hating because they hate, then that's still not going to resolve the issue. Somebody's got to have a level head, and somebody's got to be able to understand it's ignorance. And you can't become ignorant because somebody else is ignorant. And ignorant, I used to think ignorant meant stupid. But ignorant means you haven't taken time to research the information to get the knowledge that's available. And it says, my people perish because of the lack of knowledge. And the context of that scripture is not because knowledge is not available. It's because you didn't put forth the effort to acquire it. And then the Father goes down and he says something a little later. He says, because you have rejected knowledge, I'm rejecting you.
Come on now.
So if you want to obtain information, get information, learn information, apprehend information, employ information, he says, I don't have anything to do with you because you can't do what I've assigned you to do if you ain't got that flowing
Faith
through
without
you.
work is dead.
So that's the thing we got to understand. We're losing our kids by the tons and thousands because nobody is pouring into them. So now they're getting socially promoted. Don't know a thing, but getting socially promoted. You can't read. Nobody should ever get out of high school without being able to read. But because we let them socially promote them, they'll have a diploma and can't even read the inscription on the certificate. Does that make sense? Doesn't make sense at all. So we were making sure that our kids, our kids were learning before they ever went to a school. But before I ever got to that public school, I could read.
Yeah.
You know, I learned to read in kindergarten. Matter of fact, I learned to read at home. You know, we had kindergartens and what we call now Head Starts and all that stuff in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
And there were people there that took up their own time and didn't make a whole lot of money. But their job was to make sure that the children out of that neighborhood were some of the best children that would go into that school. They knew how to read. They knew how to write. You know, and those that didn't, they set them aside and worked with them until they got them to that point. Yeah. And then if there was something they couldn't get to that point, then they found other vocations for them to make sure that they would be a part and be an active part and a vital part, an instrumental part of society.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what the community lacks, man. You can't say anything to somebody, a child these days.
And that's the problem. Man. They put it on the schools. Yeah, they put it on the schools to try to do that for their kids, and that's not where it was, and that's the way it shouldn't be. It should be in the communities to put that in the kids, and then send the kids to school, and then it helps make sure that they get through that successfully as well.
And I think that'll make it way better for the teacher. It's not the teacher's job to raise our kids.
Definitely. That's why it's so hard for teachers now. They struggle with these kids. Boy, they fighting them, and I see a lot of videos about that, man. And we couldn't do that. We just knew certain things. We smell that much now. We know when we got home, the whole community was on us. It was a
certain
problem.
things that you couldn't say certain things. You know,
I couldn't say darn, dang, nothing.
Yeah, no, not to an adult.
Nope.
That's disrespectful.
Yeah.
And that's where it all lies. Is that we have lost respect. We stopped respecting ourselves. And since we stopped respecting ourselves, we don't respect anyone else or anything else. And those who lose respect, then all they're asking for is incarceration of some sort or another. It doesn't have to be the bars. Don't have to be the bars. But again, we're talking about economic incarceration. You know, where you're sentenced. And listen, I'm not in any ways throwing off for where somebody is or what you do, but you get sentenced to Section 8. I came up in that kind of environment. I knew about that. I know about food stamps. One of the hardest things I had to do, was go to the store with some food stamps and vouchers and all of that kind of stuff. I said, no, I can do better than this. But the thing is that when you get caught in that, then where did that money come from? It comes from an entity that's controlling you or trying to control you.
You got to do what they say.
To deal better. You know, and let me bring. Let me think about how we had Black Wall Street. And you think about it right over here in North Carolina, over in Wilmington. That was an example of black people running their own city. And what happened? It was overturned. Black Wall Street burnt down and Wilmington destroyed. You know, went in and killed everybody, murdered them, threw them into the waters over there, took over the city. And all of this is in the history books.
It is.
But nobody's telling the story. Nobody is expressing it. Nobody's expressing it. So that's the stuff we have to keep in the forefront. And you can do this stuff without breathing out hate. You can do it without bringing out separatism. And of course now, the thing is, and I heard somebody speak on this the other day, and I wish I had kept the name in my head, but I didn't. But they was talking about if we separate, it's to our advantage. Because we take care of our own when we're separate. It's only when we started intermingling that we started to listen, turn our backs on each other. So we got to make sure that, you know, if we separate, hey, that's okay. We can divide and conquer. We understand that.
So what you just said, after your generation, do you think that's when the quote unquote crab in the barrel mentality started? Like there was a lot of not a lot of unity and stuff. You see how black people pull each other down, they're not trying to help each other. Do you think that's when it kind of happened after after your generation? Like
you want me to give you my real opinion on where I think the turn took? I think the turn took as we succeeded. The more we acquired, the more we became
that ego got up
or we thought we became self-sufficient. We had no need of each other.
Smelling your must.
Had no need of each other. So the more we got, the less organized, the less unified we became. You know, and then once I get it, now I got to fight to keep it. So I'm going to step on anybody or belittle anybody to make sure I keep what I got. I'm not going to use what I have to improve others. I'm going to use what I have to exclude others.
The saying is that's how niggers do.
And that's unfortunate.
That's unfortunate.
But the truth of the matter is it's not just limited to a race. It's with all people. I deal with them all, and they do the same thing. I've heard them do some of the same stuff and seen them do some of the same stuff we do when you succeed and think you've overcome come and then go back and belittle others or look down on them and ride there and frown at them. Oh, man, no, you look, I got there, you can get there. Yeah, you can, but show me. And so you feed them, man, and you know, giving fish, you only feed them for a day. But if you teach him, you know, you feed him for a lifetime. So we got to start doing stuff where it sets people up for a lifetime of achievement and experiences, you know, and pour back into them. You feel better that way. You were created to do that, and that's the way we secure who we are. Statues, books, and lessons, all of that is just a byproduct of the truth of our origin. And that can only be passed really and truly and honestly through example. You've got to be it instead of talking about it. You know, they say be about it and don't talk about it.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, but to be honest, man, before we get out of here, I would love to see, you know, speaking on Black Wall Street, us having our own hospitals, and we had our own movie theaters. We had our own post offices. Like, I would have loved to see
I mean, and we probably gonna have to get back to it.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly. So don't just say, you know, we loved it then. Let's say let's see how we can get back to that unified state.
Well, let me tell you this.
Try.
We won't have a choice because what they're doing now is they're creating self-contained neighborhoods.
Yep.
So that's the way
we've already seen it on the news.
That's the way it was.
Yeah.
Now it's going back. Solomon says there's no new thing under the sun.
That's right.
You know,
that's right.
So
you
whatever
start
has
working
happened is happening and will happen. So we'll get back to it there. The thing is, will we be prepared enough to be sufficient enough to have our own, or will we still be piping in something from somebody else? Self-sufficient means all of our stuff come from us. They don't supply us. You know, we supply ourselves.
And that means we got to do the small jobs, even the small jobs we got to do. That's the big jobs and the small jobs. So we got to have somebody to do it all.
We're talking over there, man.
And that's it. And we can do it. We will do it. It's just a matter of people like yourself and those who you come in contact with. You know, you breathe on them that same thing. You know, don't speak negativity. But lift them up. The book says we ought to esteem others more highly than ourselves. That esteeming, that encouraging is what bring about better results. That's the thing that changes an area. It is not that condemning and belittling, because you start condemning and belittling, you take away self-worth. But when I start esteeming and exalting, I instill self-worth. And when somebody think that they are valuable and know that they have something to offer, then they're going to always do their best. That's why I got into real estate, because ownership changes us. As long as I'm renting, I don't care about your house. You know, I'm telling you, I'm gonna tear the walls up. I'm gonna go out there and dig your front yard up and any houses around me. I'm gonna break their windows. I don't care. But when I own it and it's my house and I got to pay the repairman, I got to fix it myself. And you know, there's something I'm paying for out of the dollars that I've earned or acquired. Now I want to take care of it and preserve it. I want to make sure it's always in its best state according to what I can afford. So that's why ownership is important. Ownership gives responsibility. And let's go back real quick. And I know we got to cut this, but we were talking about the parents and the kids. Listen, the teachers were not given stewardship over the children. Parents were. And so that's the thing we were talking about. And people ain't gonna like me, but I'm saying it anyhow.
They be all right.
You know, that's why it's so important to start teaching our people again that if you're gonna have these babies, you need to be married or have them in wedlock, or at least have responsible parents. I know everybody can't get along together, but if you feel like you can't get along with them, come on, let's stop producing these children and only allowing one parent to raise that child, or the grandparents. You know, so let's get this stuff back in where the parents who are supposed to be the stewards over the children take on that responsibility and raise those children as they should be raised. Grandma and grandfather step in and help them, but still they need to play a role too. Just because they step in don't mean you step out.
That's right.
You know, so that's the thing about it. We got to understand who's been given that responsibility, and then the rightful owner of that responsibility needs to take it.
That's right. That's real.
I'm gonna say this one more time. It's tight, but it's right.
Yes, sir.
Got to say it, because that was
that's it right there.
Confirmation. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
You know, but it be like that sometimes, man. Anybody got anything else they want to say? I want to leave it right there. I sure do. Make a reel out of it.
Yeah, that's a good one there.
So but
be encouraged, y'all, man. You know, be encouraged. Don't ever think that you're too far down to help your next man up.
Indeed.
You know, help your next man up, and somebody's gonna help you up. You gotta believe that.
Anything you gotta do?
don't be afraid to spread the history of us being black and excellent. You know what I'm saying? A lot of our culture is being diminished through appropriation, and yeah, they appreciate us, but they don't appreciate us to even say they got it from us at times. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So that's something that we need to work on. Teach one and tell everybody about the history of our culture, man.
And the importance, yeah.
Anything else you got left, Pop? Last thing?
Yeah, let me say this: we shouldn't need the others' recognition to appreciate who we are.
That's right.
Okay, yeah.
But I should need the approval of somebody else. When
right.
I've been taught from an infant who I am and what I have to offer, anything they give me is just gravy or byproduct. But I know that I've been created for greatness. They can't take it away.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the thing we got to understand.
Yep.
And I'm gonna drop this on, and then we closing. But we're not cursed. And some think that we were cursed to Cush in the Bible. You know, when you get in the book of Genesis, but we're not a cursed people. Read the whole story.
Yeah.
Don't read the half story and
That's
think
right.
you understand. So we're not a cursed people. We're a blessed people. And by the way, if that did happen, the Old Testament was consumed in a Redeemer called Jesus. And he's the one that was cursed on a tree, that we may not be cursed and just be.
That's right.
There you go.
Bars.
Backyard inspiration.
Hey,
Right there.
be
We hope
inspired.
that you are inspired. We hope that you have received the knowledge.
That's right.
And we definitely appreciate everybody sitting here, especially you, Pops, for coming on today, man. Everybody give a hand clap of praise right now. You know what I'm saying? Dr. Honest Martin Sr., man, always knowledgeable and not afraid to share the word and preach the word.
He do it every time.
Anywhere.
Every
you know
time.
what I mean? And I thank you for that, man. I thank you for that. We gonna get on up out of here, man. This episode was brought to you by Real Demand TV. Y'all know we're streaming in 172 countries. I'm gonna keep saying it. Also by Mr. Julius Rowe. Anybody in the need of any type of substance abuse, man, holler at Mr. Julius Rowe. He'll get you moving in the right direction. As always, I got my boy, Skeezy Baby. Please say the baby.
Yeah, I already know.
That really doodly I got down here.
Right here.
Dr. Honest Martin Sr. right here beside me as well.
Good to be here. Thank God for the opportunity.
Yeah, we appreciate you, man. I'm your boy Vocal26. Make sure y'all email us at backyardcomedy3@gmail.com. Also, hit us up at backyardcomedyllc.com. That's our website. We are up and running. Everything you want to find out is on that website. Go check it out, man. It's nice. Brother that done it, man. He did an excellent job.
He did good.
Man. Y'all know time is a precious thing to waste, so don't waste it by not watching Backyard Comedy. We appreciate you, and we love you.
Love y'all, man.
Till next time.
Be safe.